Where are we going?
We are heading to have something to eat, and then we're meeting up with Cari and Janusz from Easy German, and we're gonna film with them. Hey everyone, Dana here, and today I'm here with Cari from the Easy German YouTube channel, and we just finished filming a video for the Easy German channel about, what was the video?
What's the hardest thing about learning German?
Yeah, and so we asked Germans that question, and now I would like to know from Cari what you think, because Cari is a German native speaker, but you've also been all around the world and you've talked to so many learners of German, and so I'm really excited to hear what you think the hardest parts or the hardest things about learning German is.
It's indeed a difficult question, and it's interesting because there are things that are more difficult to some people than to others, and it has really kind of like changed my understanding of learning German, like traveling has, because in the past, especially in the past year, we've been to Vietnam, to Japan, to the US, to Mexico, and German learners meet different obstacles everywhere. But there's a few things, maybe not like things that I could say they are the hardest, but maybe things that are underestimated. Like the top one thing that Janusz always names, for example, are articles, and he's right with that. Like if you learn German, you cannot learn a word separate from the article. Otherwise, you'll really struggle later. And I actually know some people who have just learned words, so they know.
Some people.
No, I don't. Don't mean you.
I do mean me.
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, because
you've made like you learned words without articles.
Well, when I learn German, when I'm just watching TV, sometimes you don't always get the article with it, or it's tricky because if it's what's a D word real quick?
Die Sonne.
Die Sonne, but it's von der Sonne. Or by, so then it sounds like der Sonne, and then sometimes it gets in my head as der Sonne, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I mean, this is something you have to, it's basically two words you're learning. Like all the vocabulary, if you learn a noun, it's two words you're learning and not one. And you should know this from the very beginning, otherwise you'll talk German and you'll do everything wrong. You can't know dative and accusative if you don't know the article, and that's the thing. You can learn declinations, but if you haven't memorized the articles, it doesn't help you.
That's wonderful. So point number one, article.
That's point number one. Point number two is, this is something that is really tricky in the German language. It's not that easy to explain, is this Hilfsverben, when they stand with a verb in perfect. This haben versus sein. Ich bin gefahren, ich habe gehustet, ich bin gelaufen. And there are some rules for it. You can learn them, but I still think, because I see this with Janusz, that this is something he still does mistakes with after like 30 years. That's why I know that it must be hard.
Yeah, and on the Easy German channel, there's a video to this topic, which I will link over there. Over there. Yeah. Watch out, Cari, watch out.
We've tried to make a video for it, but essentially I think you just need to get familiar with these terms, and you just need to hear them again and again. So the third thing I had in mind was pronunciation, which is, and the tricky part about it is that you have some things that are obvious and some things that are less obvious. Like, we see this with our videos. We do some videos like, for example, how to pronounce CH in German has lots of clicks. Lots of people think like, okay, this is what is really hard because it's the most obvious part. We also did other videos. For example, we did a video recently how to pronounce German vowels, which is for some people harder than for you too.
Like the U with the umlaut.
For example, the umlaute, but
hard.
even something like E. Like Janusz told me, for Polish people, for Russian people, they have different E's and S. And if you don't focus on it ever, then you can't really learn it, And obviously, different people have different obstacles. Like Americans always have, the biggest obstacle is always the R. As you know, you have worked really hard on this. And other people, for example, I think for maybe Chinese, Vietnamese people, it's generally the hardest to learn German pronunciation because of these tones that you have. Like I think, I don't know, Vietnamese, Chinese, they have 5 or 6 different tones. And you hear this this is a reason why for me I think it would be impossible to learn Vietnamese, for example, but the other way around, it also means you have to really focus on pronunciation. And yeah, so for some people, some things are more difficult, and this is something we have to acknowledge as German learners and as German teachers.
Yeah, the R, the R,
yeah,
the R. Yeah,
you know this. I mean, it's a huge thing, and I see this with almost with all American friends, that it's
Lehrer. We did this before. We did a video about pronunciation,
exactly,
and Lehrer. It's so hard.
And for example, British people don't have this
because they have a softer R in British English. Yeah.
And generally, all the countries that are north of Germany, they have it much easier to do German pronunciation, just because it's very similar, I think. Yeah, the fourth topic, I think, is talking to Germans in German, or actually finding the occasion to talk German. This is something that also someone mentioned here in the streets. In a city like Berlin, where there's so many foreigners, it's very common that the language spoken is English. In lots of bars you speak English, in lots of companies you speak only English. So if you come here as an English native speaker, or as a person as a Spanish person who speaks good English, it's actually, you don't need to learn German living in Germany, and that makes it harder. So it always kind of depends on the need. You have to see, is the environment really pushing you to learn German or not? And if you really want to learn German, how can you push yourself to do it? Because if you live in a city like Berlin, you work in an English-speaking company, and you have German friends who really like to speak English with you, it's incredibly hard. And on the other hand, if you come here and you have to learn German because maybe your status, your visa depends on it, or you need to get into school and the school requires you to speak B1 or C1 German, these are all needs. You have to learn German. And I feel like a lot of people who needed to learn German, who have really the pressure to learn German, actually manage well to speak German to an almost perfect level after 2 or 3 years. And it's obviously people come with different backgrounds and with different kind of pressure, and it doesn't make it harder or more or easier for people, but it's something you have to, have in mind. If you really want to learn German, that's okay, but do you really need to learn German? And if you want it, maybe you should put yourself in a situation where you also need it. And that would help.
Okay. Do you think that maybe within Germany, you've got Berlin, and you've come to Munich as well? I feel like in Berlin, I've noticed this, and I would like to make a longer video on this topic. But yeah, I have noticed that sometimes I'll go to a cafe and I'll speak German, and the person speaks back to me in English, but they're not a German speaker. So I think that's interesting. In Munich, I don't experience that as much.
It's a Berlin thing, definitely.
Okay.
So if you really want to learn German, it's funny because there's so many people come to Berlin to learn German, but if you really want to learn German, I would not recommend you to come to Berlin and do your summer course or your semester abroad here. It's obviously the most exciting city in my eyes, but it's also it's not the perfect environment to learn German.
And interesting, she says it's the most exciting city. You heard that from Cari. Cari says it's the most exciting city.
For me, it's the reason to live here is because it's exciting and because it's big and diverse, and there's lots of reasons why I like Berlin. But for learning German, it might be more helpful to be in a smaller city.
That was really interesting. Those are really good points. Thank you so much for really thinking about it, and those are really interesting. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So move out of Munich, go into the Bavarian mountains and live in a small village.
Yeah, only then you're not going to learn German.
Okay, you don't want to speak Bavarian.
You need to find a
so
place.
Maybe you two move to the Rhineland, and you after 2 carnivals.
Then I can get even more intense with my Ich, Mich, Dich, Kirche,
exactly.
Honig, Richtig.
richtig herzlich sind die Menschen
Is
da.
that the accent?
I don't know. That's what I hear when I hear
Really?
Stefan. I
People-
always hear like the.
People notice from him in one video we did. In one video we did where he spoke German, people really mentioned that they noticed he said, "Warte, warte, warte."
Yeah.
No, I can't do it.
Warte.
I'm sorry. Can you do
Warte,
it?
yeah.
Can you give me a Warte, Stefan?
Warte mal.
There we go.
Yeah, I immediately hear that he comes from Cologne area
Yeah.
because of this.
But that's a different video. We've gotten off
Yeah, yeah.
track. We've gotten off track. So,
our question for you is,
what would you say is the hardest thing about learning German? Have you learned German? Or if not German, what's the hardest thing about learning any foreign language? Please let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much, Cari, for joining me in this video. And yeah, we had a lot of fun doing the questions for the Easy German video. I believe I already said at the beginning, I'll put it up there and I'll link it down in the description box below. That was so much fun. Thank you for joining me in this video. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope you also enjoy the video over on the Easy German channel. And until next time,
Auf Wiedersehen!
And then we can just like walk off now. You ready? Okay. Just go.